Hallo comrades. So, for my second speech, which is an informative one, I won't be talking about communism, for once. Instead, I will be talking about a concept in psychology called inattentional blindness, as I find it very interesting how it explores how our mind works, how we perceive the world, what we see, what we do not see. And since it's something that can happen to anybody in any day of their life, well, I thought it would be interesting to share it with you. Which is one of the reasons why I choose this topic. The second reason being, I already done a whole presentation on it in my psychology class like 2 months ago. I already had all the information, all the speech, no more work to be done. You know how people tell you to not work hard, work smart? Well, I prefer to not work at all and still get rewarded for it. Pure communism. So, I would like to start by defining what selective attention and selective inattention are, as this will help us to understand what inattentional blindness is. So I simplified it a lot, but it's easy. Selective attention is what we're focusing on and thus what our mind takes notes of. And selective inattention is just the opposite. For example, imagine you're in a crowd, everybody's talking and you're talking to a friend. Your selective attention will be the words of your friends as you focus on them, as you want to hear what he has to say. And your selective inattention will be all the others' conversation going around you that you do not focus on and thus you do not hear. And in this situation, selective inattention is a good thing, as it allows you to not be disturbed by all the other conversation that you do not focus on, and put all your focus on the words of your friend. But this can also lead to inattentional blindness, which by definition is failure to notice an object, person, or event happening in front of our eyes. And I have to precise that this object, person, or event that you fail to notice must be unusual. So there's 4 criteria that we need for an event to be qualified as inattentional blindness, and those are important as they kind of define what inattentional blindness is. The first one is the observer must fail to notice a visual object or event that is unusual. The object must be fully visible, and in most cases of inattentional blindness is just in plain sight. 3. The observer must be able to identify the object if they're consciously perceiving it. What this means is, although you do not see the unusual object, if someone suddenly points it to you, you should be able to identify what it is. And finally, the reason of why you didn't notice this unusual event is because your attention was focused elsewhere. Now, I would like to show you an example of inattentional blindness, as this will help you to understand how inattentional blindness works and how it's possible for someone to miss something that is just in plain sight. In fact, there is an already very good example called the invisible gorilla experiment done by Christopher Chabris and Daniel Simons. And this was the first experiment about inattentional blindness, and this started a lot of research about inattentional blindness. So basically they showed some participants a video, and in this video there was like 4 or 5 people with a basketball standing in a circle making passes to each other. And the participants were told to count how many passes were made throughout the whole video. The thing is, in the middle of the video, someone dressed as a gorilla walked in the middle of the circle of everyone making passes, stopped there for 3 seconds, beat his chest, and then walked out. And the majority of the participants were so focused on counting how many passes were made, because they thought that was the important thing, that they missed the gorilla. That was in plain sight and is quite an unusual event.
So for my own example of inattentional blindness, I couldn't reproduce the invisible gorilla experiment because just as I don't have any gorilla costume, I don't have any friends. So instead I decided to show you a magic card trick. Because you see, magic often relies on this concept of inattentional blindness to fool the spectators. And when I learn a magic card trick, I will often show it to my little cousin first, who are, I think, 10 and 12. And because they're still little kids, if I fail miserably, they won't judge me as much. And when I show a trick to them, I would say clever things, such as, hey kids, you see this card? Now, watch carefully what this hand will do. Now, where did the card went? In this hand? Wrong, you flawed human being. And yeah, they love me. And just can continue to show that all my hands are empty, then make the card appear. So how does this trick relate to inattentional blindness? Well, I would like to answer this question by referring to the 4 criteria that I mentioned before. And I want to start by the last one, which is the reason of why you missed something is because your attention was focused elsewhere. So just like in the experiment, where the participants were so focused on counting how many passes were made because they thought that was the important thing, you guys probably focus on this hand, right? Because I told you to watch carefully what this hand will do, and it looks like this hand took the card. But because of that, you failed to notice that my left hand was standing in a weird position like this the whole time, which was kind of the unusual event that you failed to notice, well, hopefully. Because you see, if I did this experiment, but without this hand, I just stood like this, you will immediately see that my card is, my hand is in a weird position, and the card is just behind. But if I put my hand like this, your attention is there, and you won't notice my other hand, which is the fourth criteria. And the first one is you must fail to notice an unusual event. Hopefully you didn't saw my left hand in a weird position. The second must be, the unusual event must be fully visible. Yes, it was just there in plain sight. The third one is you should be able to identify what object you missed if you consciously perceive it. Well, yes, if in the middle of the trick I told you to look at my left hand, you will be able to see, yes, this is the left hand of a guy who uses cheap magic stunt to hide the fact that his speech, which is supposed to be informative, lacks any intellectual content. So here you go, comrades, you're informed and entertained, all that in one speech, and thus I accomplished 2 out of the 3 goals of a public speaker, all that in one speech. This clearly showed that I put a lot of work, a lot of effort in my speech. Wink, wink, Mr. Miller. Anyway, comrades, stay healthy, stay alive if you want.